stories don't define you. How you tell them will.
Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and Chief Storymaker at Elkins Consulting. In my work with coaching clients, I guide people to improve their communication using storytelling as the foundation of our work together. What I've realized over years of coaching and podcasting is that the majority of people don't realize the impact of the stories they share on their internal messages and on the people they're sharing them with. My work with leaders and people who aspire to be leaders follows a similar path to the interviews on my podcast, uncovering pivotal moments in their lives and learning how to share them to connect more authentically with others, to make their presentations and speaking more engaging, to reveal patterns that have kept them stuck or moved them forward, and to improve their relationships at work and at home. When you're ready to get started collecting your own stories, my book, Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will, is available in all the regular places, and the audiobook version is now available on Google Play and on my website, elkinsconsulting.com. As a special bonus for listeners, the audiobook includes 2 songs recorded by my band, Spare Change, in my living room in Montana. Keep an eye out for announcements through LinkedIn and via my Elkins Consulting Facebook and Instagram pages, or visit my website, elkinsconsulting.com, to learn more. Also on my website is a free podcast interview checklist. It's available to download to make sure you make the most of your next podcast interview.
I'm so grateful for the time that you are contributing to the Your Stories Don't Define You podcast. Charles Clark, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So for our listeners, I met Charles through Facebook. I saw some of the content he was sharing about the speaking that he does and the particular topics that he talks about, his audience. And it just really caught my attention as being a really important contribution to our conversations, particularly now, following so much unrest and so many different things that are going on in terms of uncertainty on our planet. So, Charles, I would love to hear just an introduction from you about what really lights you up about the work you do.
Wow, that's a great question. It kind of brings me to when I first started getting into speaking, and that's when I was at my all-time low. I hit rock bottom. I tore my quad. I was a world-class athlete, 6th fastest men in the world. And I found myself not being able to stand on my own. And the last thing I wanted to do is go back home. And that's where I went because I couldn't manage it by myself. I couldn't pay my bills, and I didn't have transportation. So I went from having it all figured out to ground zero. And I remember in that place that I was at, my mom, she asked me, she said, what do you need me to do to fix this? And I think it's so much of a mother to nurture her son or her daughter, right, to take care of her. But the thing was, I was a grown man living at home with my mom, and it was on me. And I said, Mom, this is not up to you. I got to get myself out of this. And so through trying to figure all that out, I asked myself, what do I need to do to fix this? I think that's the posing question that we should always ask ourselves, instead of trying to give it to somebody else to take ownership for your things that's happening to you. So I had to own that. And I said, I need to be successful. But we throw that word around a lot. And I had to define what that meant, because it was just so elusive. Like it didn't have any context to what I truly wanted. So I had to define it. And so I said,
because is that partly because it was so different from what you had in your head about what success would look like prior to the injury?
Exact. And I didn't realize to what magnitude, because success as a athlete, right? It's winning. That's success. That's the ultimate definition that for an athlete is to win. That's success, right? And when I found myself at a place where I could no longer win, I needed to redefine that. I needed an easier way to get that success. And I think there's nothing wrong with redefining the way you view success, because I think the ultimate measure of success is happiness within, right? It's that joy that you get. And that doesn't come from competition, right? But that comes with that inward expression. It comes with living a life of purpose and living a life of meaning, giving life to things. And so I said to myself, success means to me, in your failures, in your success, push to the next level, find that happiness. And so I found myself speaking at a stage for one of the first times in my alma mater. And I don't even remember what I said.
Which is?
Based out high school, Virginia Beach, Virginia. And
okay.
Yeah, based out high school. And so I get on that stage. I don't even know what I said, sir. I'm like, all I know is that the students, they want to take photos with me after. And I think I don't remember what I said because I didn't take it that seriously, because I had so much going on in my life, and all I thought I needed was a gold medal for people to appreciate me. And I get to the end of the event, students taking photos with me, and I remember seeing this teenage girl. She was crying, desperate, trying to get to me. And she said, when she arrived, she said, "Thank you. Thank you for sharing that message, because I felt like killing myself today. But you make me want to live my dream." And that facial expression that you made, as she embraced me, she made every little thing that I was chasing in my life have no meaning. Why? Because I realized that there's so much joy in being second in life. When you put other people first and you make yourself second, you can still win. And she made me realize at the edge of a high school auditorium that it was so much bigger than me. If I can impact somebody in my struggle, imagine what I can do in my success. What I deem as success. What I define as that. Imagine what I could do if I can truly embrace that. And so that took me on the journey of doing now, showing people how to win in life, finding their purpose, stepping into their identity, and having the mindset to handle the magnitude of their responsibilities.
Oh, the magnitude of their responsibilities. And I'm taking that as your responsibilities. Once you've understood what your magic is, what your gift is, that becomes a responsibility, and the magnitude of that, because that's what you're talking about from what your experience was with that young woman.
Yes, exactly.
So 2 things popped into my head about this. First was, how did you get that gig? Like, did somebody reach out to you from the school and say, "We need a speaker for this event, an inspiring speaker from this event, and you're an athlete"? So, like, how did that happen?
Honestly, I started a nonprofit in Virginia Beach. The back on that was, I said to myself when I was going to college, I struggled to pass the SAT and ACT. And I sat out a semester before going to college, and I ended up passing the test by 1 point. Ooh. And I said to myself, I never want students to go through what I experienced. And so I said, I'm going to start a nonprofit. When I graduate, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And I didn't know it was going to be in that capacity. Moved back at home, my mom hitting rock bottom and starting over. And so I'm giving my time and my energy to these students, but on a small scale, hey, you need to pass the SAT and you need to pass your ACT and to get into college. That's so important. And then so schools, they wanted to, hey, talk about that. Can you share your story? And I think that's how it all started. When I came back at home and I started mentoring students. And I just made myself available. I had so much time on my hand. And so I just made myself available.
To help them study, to guide them toward the resources they needed.
To point them into the direction of success. Because it really started with like a lot of high school athletes who didn't understand the significance of their SAT and ACT and passing it in order to pursue those dreams. Possibly making it to the Olympics or, becoming that professional athlete. I think, although all of those things are available to students, for somebody like me, when I had that experience, I didn't know that it had so much value, that it had so much weight. And so it was my responsibility to say, this is important. This is the steps that you need to take. I am not the one that's going to teach you how to do that, but I'm going to bring other people in to show you what you need to do to be successful in that. So I brought in coaches, I brought in NCAA, people who work with the NCAA. I just wanted these students to understand this is what it's going to take. If you want this is what it's going to take. And it kind of morphed into just me wanting to show people how to just win, and whether it's in your sports, whether it's, with clarity when yourself, being confident in yourself, whether it's just finding more purpose and being content where you are, but pursuing to get to newer levels of yourself. There's so many different layers that I discovered, but the first thing that I had to do was I just had to take that initial step.
Right. And it sounds like what you were providing for those students, first of all, was a vision, something that they couldn't have imagined before because they just didn't have access to that vision. I have a friend who works with an agency called Reach Higher Montana, and she works with a lot of foster students starting in like middle school to take them to college campuses because they would otherwise never see themselves there. So it sounds to me like, first of all, you're giving them this potential vision, if they should choose it, that there is potential there. But the other thing you're giving them is this realization that other people want to see them succeed, that it's not all on them, because we can't do it by ourselves. You have to have that community of support and encouragement. And sometimes people who are mean to you, because then you do things out of spite. You succeed out of spite. So every part of your community contributes to that vision and the potential for success. The other thing that popped into my head as you're telling me the story of this young woman coming up to you at the edge of the gymnasium and crying, and that realization that you don't have to be up in front to be successful, and that the real beauty of life is being the supporter, the person that is just behind the person that's describing and defining her success. And I think about that a lot in terms of how we choose to show up in the world to be the foundation of the success of others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that there's another story here about when you saw one of your mentees, somebody you had mentored or guided, you saw that person succeed, and you had probably, especially if it was an athlete, that kind of bittersweet, it should be me up there, but at the same time going, I was part of that foundation, that pride of being that support. Do you have a story like that?
Yeah. Katrina Young, she made the Olympic team, and I don't know why she called me, but she was getting ready to take her dive. So she's a part of the diving. She was part of the diving Olympic team in 2016, and she calls me, and she's like, "Charles, I am nervous. I don't know, help me out, give me something." And I was like, like, why did she call me? Like, she got her coaches. And I was like, okay, well, this is my moment to be second. Okay. And, I just remember telling her, like, you deserve to be there. And instead of you trying to prove yourself, why don't you just enjoy the moment? Have a piece of chocolate. That's what I told her. And she went up there and she embraced it all. She was watching the fans and she took her dive. This story isn't about winning, but it was about, for her, taking that pressure off of yourself of trying to prove that you deserve to be here. But you already proved that part because you showed up. And so I think that was the beauty of just helping somebody else see the bigger picture in it. I think that was a special moment for me.
Wow. So as somebody who understands the power of that chocolate, particularly in athletics and your heart rate and all of that, do you want to explain that to our listeners, why you said have a piece of chocolate?
Not literally, but
okay. Because I actually take it literally sometimes. Like chocolate actually can help you physiologically when you're stressed, because the sugar helps balance that.
Like kind of just picture.
I go straight to the literal.
Yeah. Give me the chocolate, okay, Charles. But just imagine yourself when you are having like a Snickers or you getting ready to open a Reese's. Chances are, like, you're not doing that standing up, right? You're gonna sit down. You're gonna observe that foil, the wrapping, right? And you're gonna just tear it nice and slow. So that's what I was just saying. Like, slow down for a moment. Take this all in. Enjoy this moment, because you don't just rush through chocolate. You don't devour it. You take it in. You get all those different touch points in your tongue to feel it and to taste it. And the magic of that is, like, you enjoy that. So that's what I'm saying.
I love that. You just created this incredible image in my head about savoring a moment, because when you eat it too fast, you don't enjoy it. And then all of a sudden it's gone. And you're like, what the hell just happened?
Yep.
But, and I talk about this with, I wrote an article years ago called Slowing Down Time. Yeah. And it was all about being present. You know how people talk about how their kids just grew up in an instant. They blinked and they went from toddlerhood to teenagehood. And I always talk about the way to slow down time is to live in that moment and savor it.
Yeah.
And there's a Kurt Vonnegut quote where he says, you stop and you look and you say, wow, if that's not nice, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And it's that same concept of just slowing down time to appreciate and savor that moment. And I can imagine how Katrina was able to really live it and be like, oh my gosh, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. And I'm guessing she nailed the dive because she was able to take that moment and be present.
She showed up with her best. And it doesn't take perfection to show up with your best. It just shows, it's just, what do I have available to me at this very present time? Let me release that.
I want to savor that. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you because I want to savor that. I don't want to forget it. It doesn't take perfection to show up with your best.
Yeah. And that is the true spirit of diligence. There's a sense of urgency for our life. We don't have next year guaranteed. We don't have the next year, the next month, the next hour. All we have is this very breath that we're breathing right now between you and I. That's it. We don't get the next breath. All we get is this one. And in that breath, like, what do you have to give in that? It's not perfection. Because if we're waiting for perfection, we're going to be waiting for time that's not guaranteed for us. But in this breath that we have right now, I can give you my best.
Yeah. Huh. I'm just going to absorb that for a moment.
Yeah.
I do think about being present a lot. And I do think of that sense of urgency and that conflict we have when it comes to that sense of urgency, that we want to live out our moments because we know we're not guaranteed. And at the same time, when we have that sense of urgency, it means we're not necessarily living in that present moment because we're thinking, what about tomorrow? And what am I going to do to make sure that I, have tomorrow or that I enjoy today? And we get so caught up in it.
But there can be a balance. And that's diligence. Diligence there is a sense of urgency, but it's the focus of your best. I need to be diligent with the best that I have right now. And I can be present in the best. I can be present in now. Diligence isn't looking forward to the future so much, but you're being meticulous and you're measuring, but there comes a time in diligence where it's just you showing up. This is what I have. I'll tell you a story. Like when I made the USA track and field team, I was 14 days away. Biggest moment of my life. 14 days away. And I had a hamstring injury. And USA track and field team, they said, you should give up your spot to someone who's more physically able. Because they knew the likelihood of me being able to bounce back from this is a very slim chance, probably 5% chance. It takes about, 4 weeks for that type of injury to
full recovery,
heal,
right?
To just heal and then be able to start jogging again, right?
Right. The injury alone has to heal, and then you have to retrain that muscle,
right?
Basically.
And I just realized that I probably won't have another opportunity like this again. I understood diligence. And so I said, I can't give you that answer right now. And every single day, all the energy that I put into making that USA track and field team, I put into a rehab program. The moments I had, I was icing, I was stretching, seeing my physiologist. I was doing everything that I needed to do to try to make the most out of that situation. I was showing up with my best. And come race day, I wasn't 100%. Nobody truly is. But I was diligent. And I showed up, no one knowing what that show up was going to look like. But I said I was going to make the most out of it. And 4 rounds that was happening that week. And I made it through every single round. And I earned the title as the 6th fastest man in the world. And
awesome.
It's all about seeing a need and taking smart, quick, and massive action to achieve a result with excellence. And that was the essence of diligence. I could be present in every single moment because I was trying to master that moment, perfect that moment to a degree. Right. So was
that partly because you knew the rest of the team was counting on you?
Man, I was counting on myself. I was counting on myself. I wanted to do this for my country. I wanted to make my family proud. And I wanted to wear that USA emblem across my chest. Where tens of thousands of people were going to be there cheering, seeing the world's greatest athletes perform. I wanted to be a part of that. I said, I did not travel thousands of miles away from home. I didn't train 11 years of my life to say better luck next year. No, I couldn't do that. So I was going to be diligent.
So what's fascinating to me is how you've been able to translate that after such serious disappointment of your final injury that really took you out of the game. being able to translate that. So I'd love to go back to this conversation with your mother, because I think this is a really important aspect of recovery from serious disappointment, which we know based on neuroscience actually triggers the same part of your brain as feeling physical pain. That disappointment triggers physical pain, and that same part of your brain is triggered. So you're actually, as much as your injury isn't necessarily causing you pain at that point, because you're kind of in recovery at that point. I mean, but you're feeling physical pain because of your brain, right?
Yeah.
When you're having this conversation with your mom.
The injury of itself, I've dealt with worse pain than that. Like tearing my quad, 99% tear. That was nothing in comparison to the pain that I felt on the inside. Because I realized that there were so many more scars that was going to come with that. Scars of my coach no longer wanted to train me, scars of a relationship ending, scars of moving back home, starting over. All of these scars of not feeling good enough, scars of never feeling like I was ever going to be successful in life, scars of not having confidence.
Right.
It took me to that place. And so when you talk,
no, go ahead. When you talk about emotional pain.
Yeah. When you talk about that pain and me being at home, it was less about the injury that needed to heal and more about my identity that I needed to discover.
Transform. I mean, really, it's a transformation you had to undergo. So the reason I want to come back to that moment is I'm a mom. And I've had an experience with my older son that was like, I so badly wanted to fix it. Like every molecule of my body, every part of every molecule, literally every molecule is aching to want to fix this, absolutely knowing that it wasn't something A, I could do, or B, I should do. Like there's a point where you have to let your child experience this transformation, this incredibly painful transformation. You have to let your kid do this or they're not going to grow, and you can't do it. But you have to ask that question as a parent: what can I do to fix this for you? And I'm like feeling this awful pain in my heart for your mother. Like my eyes are tearing up because I know how painful it is to watch somebody you love with every ounce, every molecule in your body to go through this. So when you said, I have to do this. What was that like? Like, what was the conversation like in that moment with your mom?
I mean, honestly, when I said that, because she had her hands on her head, she was confused. She never seen me so broken. I partially was looking at her because I couldn't even hold my head up. I felt so down. Weak. Right. I remember those tears just dripping down on that floor. And I looked at her and I said, it's on me. I'm the one. And she slapped her hands on her leg. And she just couldn't do anything else. And it was nothing else that happened, in between that time.
Right.
It was just a realization that this was going to be a process. And, like a caterpillar, right? Caterpillars are so compelled to go through change. Is willing to kill off his old self to become a butterfly. They literally digest their self. They grow 100 times the size to create change. And she had to watch me go through that uncomfortable cocoon phase of my life that no mother wants to see happen to a son. but I thank her for it, because I wouldn't be who I am today. You know, someone living a dream that I didn't even know was possible for me, to travel around the world, to impact people's lives, and to share my scars with people, to tell them that if I can hit rock bottom and bounce back, you can thrive too.
Mm-hmm. Did you tell your mom the story about the girl coming up to you afterward and thanking you? What did your mom say when she heard that story? Do you remember? Or did she just, I mean, I'm assuming there was a physical response as much as there was an emotional and verbal one.
Yeah, I think she was just like, wow, that is very beautiful. That's nice. I think like the whole time I said, Mom, I'm gonna start this nonprofit. Mom, I'm gonna start doing my business full time. I'm living on her dime.
Right.
I don't have a job. I'm borrowing her car. Like she's allowing me to do all the things that probably she wished she should do because she had me at a young age. And I'm seeing all of this. And that's why, I got so much love for my mom. Want to do as much as I can for her. And I'm just so thankful for her, that she gave me the opportunity to be me, discover me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the most powerful and impactful gifts, is that space for exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I watched this TEDx many years ago. I got to interview the guy twice on my podcast. His name is Mark Bowden. And his TEDx was in Toronto, and he talked about the importance of being inauthentic. And what he was talking about was when you decide what your authentic self is, and it becomes a static, immovable thing, you leave no room for transformation. And you leave no room for sharing your brilliant ideas with others if that's not within what you consider your authentic self. Right? Mm-hmm. That kind of stepping out of your comfort zone to explore is basically what you have to do. So I think one of our biggest issues, and this was in this podcast episode with Mark, is authenticity shaming. Mm-hmm. Which is when somebody externally says, oh, it's just a phase, or that's just not you. When mm-hmm. you try to do something else, or when you're trying and exploring your world and what you see as your potential for success, whatever that definition is. So I think what your mother was giving you in terms of a gift was that space to explore and transform in your own way, without any of the parameters and boundaries that we as parents kind of want to set. Because, when you're little, we have to set those boundaries so you don't really get seriously hurt. But as you age, we kind of have to give you that space. So, so I'm guessing that that's kind of what you do with your speaking, is you are opening that space for other people to do that and to feel the support of that exploration.
I want people to make a decision for themselves. Can you own your life? Whatever that ownership looks like. Can you do it with integrity? It's different. I think there was this, what's the movie called from Disney? Soul.
Oh, yeah. I keep hearing that I need to see that movie. I haven't seen it yet, but it gets rave reviews.
Yeah, it's a great, and really, like, there's a definition of like purpose and like being connected to life. That's what they really view as, purpose. But I'm saying, like, it's being connected to life, doing things that gives you life, and having integrity. That's purpose. Because everything that you do, it's leading to a better promise for your life and a promise for somebody else. It's all intentional. We can't take intention out of our lives, because that's the thing that gives us purpose. You know, like a honeybee, they make honey. That's a purpose. That's intentional. Honeybees can't make milk.
Thank goodness. It'd be really hard to kind of get that little tiny. Anyway.
Yeah. And so, like, I want people to see that there is a unique design for them. And there's a responsibility and a calling on their life. But that's your decision. It's going to come to the mind as a realization, but no one's going to make that step but you.
This is a great place, because we just came full circle to bring this back to that whole responsibility. This is something that comes up a lot in my conversations with coaching clients, and particularly with that sense of no one is going to fix your life for you. And if you are dissatisfied, it's your responsibility to make a change and make a shift. I keep coming back to a couple of my coaching clients in the past that have said, well, this is just me. You know, I'm not going to change for somebody else. And it always comes back to, well, that's fine as long as you're satisfied with your relationships. But if you're dissatisfied, then there's something else going on, because you have a pattern.
Right.
Something about your behavior is turning people away from you. And it's your responsibility. It's all about your personal responsibility. And you said that at the very beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like a burden, which it can be if you don't treasure what your magic is, right?
Yeah. Too much is given, much is required. And if you don't want it, then it's not going to be given to you. You know, somebody else is going to have that opportunity. The reason why there's so much room at the table for dreamers, for people to do things that they never thought was possible, is because qualified people don't show up. Qualified people don't show up. And so that's why there's room. There's room for you. There's room for me. And you got to own it. That's up to you. Nobody could do that for you, though.
Right. Wow. So if you could share one more story with our listeners, one thing, what is a story that when you've shared it with other audiences has had really big impact, that you could see the wheels turning in the eyes and faces of your audience? What is one story that it always works? And partly because you feel so strongly about it, it doesn't matter how many times you tell it, it's still, you can bring it every time.
I think it's definitely about finding your why, your reason you're going to show up. And when I found my why for that teenage girl, she made me see that it was bigger than me. I said to myself, all right, everything that I do, I have to show up with a reason. And I remember going downtown in Tampa. I was visiting one of my friends. He was in town. And so we were at this coffee shop. And after the coffee shop, I get in my car. It's hot. Tampa hot, August. So 98 humid. Feels like 170 degrees outside.
Right.
And so I see this elderly couple. They're roaming around town. I felt like they had a map in their hand. And I said, ma'am, I'm sorry, can I help you guys find something? And they said, yeah, we've been trying to find our car. We don't know where it is. I said, don't worry about it. Hop in my car. I'll take you to where you need to go. He said, we need to go to the Wells Fargo. It was around the corner. So I put in my GPS to Wells Fargo. It was literally like 0.2 miles away. And
but it's hot, so you'd
It's
rather be in an
hot,
air-conditioned
right? I
car,
blast the AC.
even if it's 4 minutes.
Right.
Right.
I take them to the parking lot and they just so thankful. And the elderly lady, she says to her husband, George, give this handsome man $5. And I said, ma'am, I don't want your money. I was just doing it. And she said, well, are you married? And I'm thinking like, she's going to hook me up with her granddaughter. And I'm like, at the time I wasn't married. So I said, no, I'm not married, ma'am. And she says, well, when you do get married, make sure you listen to your wife because he's the reason we've been lost for 2 hours. and the joy that I got from all of that, the humor, right? The satisfaction of showing up for somebody else is, again, the true essence of winning in life. Making myself second, making myself available for somebody so that they can win. And that is what you will feel every time you choose to make yourself second in situations.
Perfect. It's a perfect story.
Yeah.
I love it. Charles, if our listeners want to get a hold of you, what are the best ways to get a hold of you, to learn more about what you do? I know you have a book coming up here in the next, 6 months or so? Tell us a little bit about that. So
I actually have about 3 books coming out within the year.
Oh, goodness. Wow. You've been busy.
One is a journal. One's for note taking, to really help you increase your comprehension and take action. The other book is a book about how you can become a paid speaker. So how you can find your voice, develop your message, and get consistently paid speaking gigs. Put it all in a book. And the other book, that's the book that I've been working on for the past 7 years of my life, really trying to define what it means to thrive in life. And it's been a journey. Every year, something new, clarity comes. And at this point, I'm just like, all right, let's just finish this thing. So those are the magics that I have coming out this year. And if you want to connect with me, feel free to message me on IG at The Charles Clark, or go to my website if you want to attend one of my events, thecharlesclark.com. We're doing virtual events, in-person events coming soon. And, I just love to connect with people, welcome you to my tribe, show you how to win in life.
Awesome. And for our listeners, I will have all of these links in the blog post associated with this podcast on elkinsconsulting.com. Charles, I cannot thank you enough for your time and your energy and your stories. This has been just such a pleasure, and I can't wait to share this with our listeners.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will. The book of the same title is now available, and the audiobook version will be released in November 2020. If you're ready to uncover your stories and learn to uncover the stories of the people around you to create stronger connections and healthier communities, visit elkinsconsulting.com. And while you're visiting the website, you can learn more about the book and the work we do to improve communication among teams and through our one-to-one coaching. Thank you.
Now listen to me, honey, while I say, how could you tell me that you're going away?